Hello, welcome back to I Say Our Wrong Reads, and today, after a wee break, we have our winter wrap-ups. So, due to a number of real-life consequences, I haven't been able to actually make a video in the last couple of months, but I am back to quickly kickstart back my video making with a simple wrap-up of what I've been reading for the last 2 months. So, I read 6 books in January and I read 4 books in February. As you can see, I've not been reading as much as I normally do. This is because obviously I'm in my master's year of university, so I've been pretty much working full days on that and not having any energy by the time I get home for something that requires brain thinking like reading. But let's get into it. So, first things first, I started off the year kickstarting my last couple of months doing my astrophysics degree with Cosmos by Sagan. Now, I had never actually read this before, so it was an interesting experience to see all my friends that had read it raved about it, and it was very interesting to see how I talked about it and this kind of thing. And I found it really, really good, but the problem with an astronomy book or an astrophysics book is that the science behind these things come and go so quickly that things that were written in this, which was written in 87, I believe, or like it was published in 87 or around about then. Oh no, 1981. I was 6 years late. All of the stuff that's kind of talked about here, quite a lot of it is changed now in science-wise. So it was very interesting to see the differences between kind of that and now. There was a lot of discussion about a number of probes that were going to be released. They were thinking how they can never manage to get something on Mars. They have. They've done numerous on Mars, and that sort of thing. So it was like at this point in time, the space missions to the moon hadn't even been called off, if I remember rightly. I think the last one to that was in 79 or 81 or something like that. The NASA was still in full throttle. So it was very interesting to see how that compared to now, where at the time this was written, the area of physics or astrophysics which I study personally didn't even exist. Stephen Hawking was just getting it off the ground. It was I do research in gravitational waves, and at this point in time, it wasn't even a thing. Black holes were just kind of becoming a thing. It's just so unreal to see the differences in science between now and then. So I gave this one 5 stars. It was really, really interesting. I think I got a lot out of it, but I got such a different experience out of it, I think, than I was expecting to get out of it, which was very interesting to me. So that was Cosmos by Carl Sagan. So after reading a bit of non-fiction, I wanted to get straight back into my kind of rereading of the Morganville Vampire series with Last Breath. I gave this one 4 stars, I think, by Rachel Caine. It wasn't... Again, I don't want to talk about it too much because I want to make a video of it at the end. I'm slowly getting through the 15 books in this series, but it's slow and steady, but it will win the race eventually, and I will get a video out about that, I promise. But they're fun, short. I think I read it in like 24 hours. They're short. Well, I say they're short. They're about 450 pages long, but they're very, very easy to read and they're short paced. So it's something good to pick up after you've had such a heavy book such as Cosmos by Carl Sagan. Then, because I didn't have enough non-fiction apparently, I recently got a copy of the next in Stephen Fry's series of Greek myths. So I read a Mythos and I read Heroes, and I both really enjoyed them, and I probably read them within like 24 hours as well. I was obsessed with them, and I finally picked up Troy by Stephen Fry, which was a retelling or like kind of a description of the Trojan War and how it took place in mythology and that sort of thing. The Trojan War was one part of Greek myths that I have not looked into whatsoever. I do not know anything, whereas Mythos and Heroes, I knew most of it already. Troy was one of these ones that I just didn't know anything about whatsoever. So it was really, really fun, kind of seeing how things linked to each other. So the bits that I did know about, like how the war started, but all the bits leading up to it, and kind of comparing it to other books I've read, like Natalie Haynes' A Thousand Ships, all these sort of things. It was very, very interesting, and I'm looking forward to kind of reading more into Greek mythology, especially the Trojan War, which is something that I've not touched with a 10-foot pole before this. Yeah, I like the other ones. It's really, really easy to read, and it's very informative, and there's lots of lovely pictures. So I would definitely recommend this for someone who's kind of wants to know more about the Trojan War but doesn't really know where to start. So it's like a kind of good introduction to it, I would say. Yeah. And then kind of came the whole, I want to read a book before the TV series released. So Magpie Murders by Anthony Horowitz, it is here, is released as a TV series on BritBox. And I saw it and I was like, oh, this looks really, really good. I've got the book sitting up on my shelf. I might as well read it before the TV series comes out so I can compare it. And I thought both the book and the TV series were really, really well done. I thought they were like pretty much on the same level of how much I enjoyed it. This was a very, very interesting book because it's actually split into two. So the first one is kind of like a classic Agatha Christie style murder mystery, where it's kind of written there and then the last chapter's missing, and the rest of the book is essentially the publisher, or sorry, the editor of the book trying to figure out where that last chapter is after the author has been murdered. It's a really, really good murder mystery, and it's fun, and I love Anthony Horowitz writing, and especially after reading quite a lot of his, like before Christmas, I read quite a lot of his kids' books and his young adult books, and so reading an adult-centered book about this just kind of blew me out the park, and I really, really enjoyed this one. I think I gave it 4 stars or 5 stars. I can't actually remember now, but I really, really enjoyed this one nonetheless, and would highly recommend it. And I would highly recommend the TV series. It had him from Game of Thrones in it, and oh, what's her name? Leslie. I want to say Leslie Manning, but I can't actually remember her name. But she was really, really good, and it was just very good in general. So I would highly recommend this one. And then, again, because I don't have enough non-fiction, I decided to pick up the memoir of Vera Brittain, Testament of Youth. Now, this is an absolute mammoth of a book. It's about 600 pages, and it's pure, like, hard reading all the way through, obviously, because it's a memoir of this young woman who became a nurse during the First World War and lost her brother, her fiancé, and her brother's best friend. And it's kind of her memoir of her becoming a pacifist and what it means to her and why she doesn't believe in war and that sort of thing, which I actually read in January. So it was very, it was extremely difficult to read that, and then kind of evaluated my kind of experience, because I am also would consider myself a pacifist. But it was just such a interesting memoir, especially to do with war and youth and that sort of thing, and education and trauma and kind of reliving something after the fact. I also watched the film with Alicia Vikander and whatever the hell his name is, from Game of Thrones, funnily enough. It was also very good, but if you feel like you can manage it, I would highly recommend reading the book. Most of it I listened to on audiobook because it was just so vivid at some points. I just had to put the book down and just kind of go for a walk. But it is mainly diaries and descriptions and sort of that. So if kind of that's too much for you, then maybe not. But it's also peppered through with poetry by Vera Brittain and her fiancé and that sort of thing, and how our life came to be. And then last but not least, for January, I picked up The Day of the Doctor, a novelisation by Stephen Moffat. Now this is for a video that I'm going to do about the next kind of pilgrimage video, which is going to come out soon. I'm currently editing it as we speak, but it's taking a bit longer than usual, even though it's shorter than normal. And so this was for that. I really enjoyed it. I would say 4 stars out of 5. There was a couple of bits that I was like, yeah, I can see this happening, but it was fun, and comparing it to the TV series, it was fun, and it expanded on things which I liked from a novelisation, and yeah, it's nice and short and sweet. And now we get on to February. So February kind of started with me not reading for almost a week, but I was reading, but I only read one book, and it was a book based on a television series that it was a book that was converted into a television series a couple of years ago, and that is The Terror by Dan Simmons. Now, I watched the TV series first before I read the book, I know, but the book is almost 1,000 pages long, so you'll forgive me at this point in time for not managing to get through it in time. I adored the TV series. I thought the TV series was absolutely brilliantly put together, absolutely brilliant, very, very, I just thought it was brilliant, with Jared Harris and Caine Hines, and I just thought it was masterfully done. But then I decided after I finished, I was so obsessed with the TV series and it was in my mind at all times. So I was like, let's go get the book. No. If I hadn't watched the TV series before reading this, I wouldn't have enjoyed it. I know for a fact that I wouldn't have enjoyed it. It's not difficult to kind of read, but it jumps between the characters a lot, which when you're on screen wasn't so much of an issue for me, because obviously you could identify who they were by their faces, not their names, but it's just pure names in this. There's no kind of other descriptions, so you have to and there's like a good 50 different characters in it, so you have to kind of keep an eye on who's who and what's what and what's going on. The only ones that I really kind of got attached to in the book were the ones that I could put a face to from the TV series, namely Jared Harris's character, Good Sir, Franklin, the other guy, I can't remember his name now, who played the captain after, that guy. I'm not going to spoil it for anybody. But the worst thing about this book was the sex scenes. Now, in the TV series, there was not a single sex scene in sight. Thank God, because the way that Dan Simmons writes his sex scenes is absolutely god-awful. Now, he's one of these authors that seem to, no matter what the character is, if it's a woman, he describes them by their boobs, which I'm not a fan of because that's kind of sexist, but it's a kind of very similar in vein to the sex scenes, when it was just kind of god-awful and it took me straight out the book and it was just not enjoyable in the slightest. And I think the TV series was a masterful telling of converting the book into a TV series, cutting out all the bits that were bad and keeping everything that was good about it. And I think that if you're wanting to keep an eye on this, I would recommend the TV series instead, which is probably the first time I've ever said that about a book, but it didn't click with me. It wasn't my kind of thing. I just found it kind of, like, the gruesome violence and all that kind of thing didn't even bother me. It was the way that it treated women and the way that it talked about sex scenes was just awful. Which I don't know, maybe that's getting my priorities back to front with the gruesome violence and stuff like that, but I just didn't enjoy it whatsoever. And then I read a Christmas present I got from my mother, which was 13 Doctors, 13 Stories, and it's essentially 13 short stories, one featuring every Doctor, by a number of 13 different authors. So we have Philip Reeve, Neil Gaiman, Charlie Higson, Patrick Ness, Michael Scott, Rachel Mead, Ian Colfer, Alex Scarrow, Derek Landy, Holly Black, Mallory Blackman, Marcus Sedgwick, and Naomi Alderman. Now, this was fun. It was enjoyable. There was a really, really weird 8th Doctor story in here, which was bizarre. It was by Derek Landy, I believe, author of Skullduggery Pleasant. It was bizarre. Other than that, I think my favourite one was probably the 4th Doctor story, which is really strange because I don't normally enjoy 4th Doctor stories. Ooh. But this is a very big, heavy book. As you can see, it's like absolutely huge. I think it must be a large print version of it. Or maybe it's just that big because it's... Anyway, what was I saying? I forgot what I was saying. Anyway, you're going to have to just pick up from what I was saying from that. Oh, yes, the 4th Doctor story. It was kind of like a living ship. It was really, really interesting. You kind of pushed the bounds of science. And I really enjoy those kind of stories. So Yep, I think I'll be talking about this maybe as part of like a short story video that I want to make, but that'll probably be a couple of months down the line, so I wouldn't be expecting that too soon. So I really enjoyed this. I gave this 4 stars. And then we come on to another non-fiction book that I read, and this was the Time Traveller's Guide to Medieval England by Ian Mortimer. So I read the Time Traveller's Guide to Restoration Britain a couple of months ago, and I really, really enjoyed it. You can tell though that this was the first book that he ever wrote. The differences between this one and the last ones are pretty stark. However, it is a lot shorter and it's a lot more kind of to the point, so it's also enjoyable. I enjoyed it well enough. I think preferred the Restoration Britain. There was a really weird part in here where he called the Scottish king the wrong king. Like, I don't know, it was really strange, but other than that, it was a fun wee joint, and if you want to read more about medieval Britain, then I would highly recommend it. And then last but not least, I was stuck in London for a couple of days with nothing really much to do except have my phone with me. So I decided to abandon that and go to my nearest Waterstones, which was like 10 minutes away from the hotel I was in, and see if I could pick up a book which could kind of tide me over until I managed to get home. And that's where I found Ghostland by Edward Parnell. Now, I had no idea what I was expecting when I picked up this book. I mainly picked it up because the cover was really pretty, because I really, really like that kind of black and white kind of featured design. As you can see, this is the Wicker Man. It's really quite cool. Anyway, so basically this is a kind of, I wouldn't really call it a memoir, it's more like of a travelogue of this man kind of losing his family and then deciding that he wants to kind of relive his childhood by investigating all the kind of horror locations around Britain that he enjoys. So he goes around different places in Britain that kind of inspired kind of horror tales, that sort of thing. Like, he goes and visits the place where the Wicker Man originated from, where he goes and visits kind of the Alloway Parish Church where Tam O'Shanter comes from, M.R. James, Charles Dickens, that sort of things, the kind of disturbing films that came out of the Britain in the 70s, these sort of things. And although I hadn't seen or heard of most of the films or the books in this book, it kind of made me want to go and seek them out and see what they were like, because the way that he described them was kind of so full of passion and love for these stories that I really, really enjoyed it. So I don't think this has actually got much like reviews or whatever. I don't think it's that popular. I think it actually might have just recently came out, to be honest, but I've not seen anybody, 2019, I've not seen anybody kind of talk about it before, so I just thought that I should, because it was really interesting and kind of touched me in a way that these kind of books don't normally, and I wouldn't have picked it up if the cover was so nice. So well done to whoever designed this cover, because I thoroughly enjoyed this book. So that was my winter wrap up. That's what I'm going to call it, because January and February kind of smushed together, and we're going to hopefully get into the spring soon. So sorry for the lack of videos, but you know, that's what happens when you're absolutely swamped with real life stuff and you can't even find a spare half an hour to record and edit. I am currently editing the next installment of the pilgrimage videos, which is going to be a Peter Cushing video, and after that I've got the season 3 one on the way out. After that, who knows. I also had a couple of trips down to Whitby and went to visit the Bronte parsonage, so I kind of want to do a couple of videos on them and kind of the adaptations of their work, because I found that really, really interesting. Otherwise, who knows, and I hope you enjoyed and have a good day. Bye bye.